Gamers will find just about anything they possibly can to argue about when it comes to technology, when it comes to PC specs, when it comes to consoles, and all that sort of thing. Let me show you the comment that inspired this video. This one, PC gamers will always argue about frames per second like it's life or death. And they absolutely will. Here's an interesting one for you. I made this video on TikTok the other day about my TV. You're welcome, LG, by the way. A cool 80,000 views on TikTok and a cool 70,000 on Instagram Reels. Anyway, the point of this video was somebody was surprised that I'm capable of playing games on a TV this big, because this is a 77-inch TV. And for some people, they struggle to get their head around that a TV that is this big can still be this good. It's a 4K 77-inch OLED. So the OLED part of that answers the refresh rate, the response time question. OLEDs, one of the selling points of an OLED is that their response times are really, really low. This TV itself is capable of 120 frames per second. At the start of this video, I showed that I was playing Ark, if I can pause it. Let me just go up to the TV to show you what I was showing. I was playing Ark, Survival Evolved, at 4K in 120 frames a second. Don't get it twisted. That was via my PC, my 3080 Ti, that was powering the game. But it's the monitor itself that we're talking about. So the argument typically comes from because people assume that large tellies have got really bad refresh rates and really bad input lag and response times, but that isn't always the case. When it comes to technology, you pretty frequently get what you pay for. I used to work at Tesco, right? And around this time of year, the end of November, Black Friday deals started happening, and they would ship and sell hundreds of TVs. And I just remember looking at these TVs and looking at the people buying these TVs, and so often it was like parents buying these TVs for their like teenagers, and I just remember thinking, oh, these poor kids. Because, yeah, if you spend £200 on a 50-inch plus TV, it's probably not going to be the best gaming TV you've ever had in the world, and a monitor is going to be better, especially for the same price bracket. Very quickly, when it comes to TVs, the size is the determining factor in the expense. For example, my 77-inch C2, back when I got it in 2022, cost me about £3,200. And if I was to get the 83-inch, so another 6 inches, I think it was going to be just shy of £5,000. Now, like £1,500 extra for an extra 6 inches is an interesting discussion that some of the dudes in this comment section might determine themselves to have. And yeah, I don't know, maybe it's a trade-off some of you would make. But interestingly enough, if you go the other way, if you'd have gone from like the 77 down to like the 50-inch, it would have been about £1,000. So it would have been like 3 times less the price. It isn't just the size of a TV that determines the frame rate and all of that sort of thing alone. It's the components and the quality of the TV itself. It isn't just monitor is always better than TV. The only real downside to gaming on a TV this big is when I very rarely ever do, play multiplayer games. I'm not a multiplayer guy. You guys that follow me know that I pretty much play old single-player stuff all the time. So realistically, the fact that I'm capable of doing 120 frames a second when I play on console primarily is already a little bit pointless. But being an OLED means that it's got very low input time. And I just think it's interesting because obviously, like we were saying about how some gamers, not just PC gamers, just gamers on the whole, it's a toxic fan base, gaming is. Check this out. We had this comment over here. Let me just get it up again. So we had this. 120 FPS is cute. Must not play multiplayer games competitively. And some dude responded saying he literally said he doesn't in the video and just completely ratioed the guy. And yeah, and again, here, people that don't understand what they're looking at. Doesn't matter if it's 120 hertz, the delay will be huge compared to a monitor. I'd only use that TV for story mode games. And again, I said, it's an OLED, mate. It's people that don't understand what they're looking at. OLEDs have very small response time. That OLED probably has a better response time than the monitor that's to my right, because that is a very cheap monitor. It's just, you know, my offhand monitor for watching tube videos. Oh, I can say YouTube because we're on YouTube. But like, I'm pretty picky when it comes to tech. That TV back there I got in 2014, and I don't know why, but it absolutely completely outclassed any other TV I had had long after the point that I got it. I remember I went through 3 other TVs that I put at the end of my bed in my mom's old house. So I'd have that one back there on my desk, curved. It's a 4K smart TV, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what makes it so special. At the time, I wasn't into it enough to know why it's so good. I just looked out in that being really good. To this day, That TV, I think, was £700 when I got it in 2014, 40-inch curved 4K, and it can keep up with my current £3,000 77-inch OLED, and that is nuts. That TV beat out, for example, when I bought this 77-inch OLED when we moved into this house, I gave my, I think, 60-inch 4K Sony Bravia to my mum to give her an upgrade. I just gave it her because I have the room. We didn't want a TV in the bedroom in this house because we wanted the bedroom to be for bedroom activities and sleeping only. Because that was a bit of a problem that I had in my old house, is that because I lived in my mum's house, it was a 2-bedroom house, and I never left my room really because I worked from home and gamed from home. Everything about my life happened in that room. It was a 6 foot by 8 foot little box. There was no space for anything. There was a single bed. It was not fun, trust me. But it meant that I spent a lot of time in the bed that wasn't just for sleeping, and it meant that I would often struggle to go to sleep. So obviously having no TV in the room upstairs makes the bedroom much more capable of sleep. Anyway, the point is that people will absolutely argue about just about anything when it comes to technology. There's very much so the sunk cost factor. It's that people will always have to argue that whatever they actually at that moment in time have is the best, because they don't want to acknowledge that there is better out there when they have then already spoken with their wallet. So for example, you could say that I'm the same. I will probably have been quoted saying that LG is the best because I have an LG. Do I know if LG is better than Sony or Samsung's equivalent OLEDs? No, because I've not tested them. But because I've put, £6,000 into LG TVs now, because I've got 2 of the C2, of course I'm going to be sunk cost fallacying my way all the way to the bank. But at least I'm self-aware about that, whereas a lot of people are not self-aware about that. They truly will just defend whatever it is that they have, and it's insane. And gaming has always been like that. Ever since I was a kid, people would do the exact same thing, where with console wars, people would say that the Xbox was better than the PlayStation, or that the PlayStation was better than the Xbox, without any justification beyond it's the one that they own. And it's crazy. A lot of stuff works just fine. A lot of stuff doesn't really matter. You could probably get a 4K TV that's a 77-inch that isn't capable of doing 120 frames for less than half the price of what I paid for mine. And that would make more sense than what I've done, because I don't use my PC for gaming very frequently. So it being capable of being able to do 120 frames a second doesn't really matter, considering the PlayStation 5 is just basically a liar in that it often doesn't do 120 frames a second. And I basically don't play PC games to be able to utilize that 120. Like, I'm pretty sure that some games on PlayStation 5 still struggle with maintaining 60, which is a wild thought when we really think about it. Anyway, enough rambling about frame rates that nobody cares about. Let's talk about Blu-rays and 4K DVDs. Do I get 4K Blu-rays or not? I mainly get 4K Blu-rays unless they're only available on normal Blu-ray. It's more expensive, but only my favourite TV shows. So, with my DVD collection, it's something that I've been looking at recently. So those that have been following along know that I've been replacing a lot of the DVDs that I care more about with their Blu-ray counterparts. For example, recently I've replaced all the X-Men films besides Deadpool 2. Working on that one, I refuse to get a red case for it. I need a blue case for it, otherwise I'm not doing it. We're going to then start working on the MCU stuff. Men in Black's been replaced. Pirates of the Caribbean's been replaced. John Wick has been replaced. The Batman and the Superman films have already been replaced, the older stuff. Some of the Disney stuff, all of the Disney stuff has been replaced with Blu-rays. Star Wars didn't need replacing, but already has been. I want to replace the Planet of the Apes trilogy. We've done Dawn, I need Rise and War. Rise is for some reason a harder one to come by. Transformers. Basically, slowly but surely, the majority of my DVDs are going to be replaced with the Blu-rays. And the reason that I'm going for the regular Blu-ray versions over the 4K Blu-rays is simply the price. Regular Blu-rays are at a point now where they are basically dirt cheap. When I first started collecting DVDs from CEX, they were dirt cheap too. So if I pull out a random one. When I first started collecting DVDs, they were almost all 50p. Sadly, CEX abolished that not so long ago. Like, within the last few years, CEX got rid of their 50p DVD section and made the minimum £1. But what that did, along with, just time making things cheaper, is it bought Blu-rays more in line with DVD prices, to the point where genuinely sometimes the DVD version of something is more expensive than the Blu-ray one, which is a crazy thought to me, but it is something that I've seen quite a few times now. So, now that it's been like 5, 6, 7 years or whatever since I first started getting my DVD collection, Now that Blu-rays have gotten to the point where they are dirt cheap, I will then start replacing them. And it's making for decent content because it's giving me something to hunt for when I go to CEX and things like that. You got to think, I have to think beyond just what do I own, what do I want, because I've also got to factor in, making videos for a living and things like that. So when it comes to the 4K stuff, it's stuff that I'm definitely interested in, but the prices of it and with how many things I have to replace already make it just a non-starter. You got to think, I own over 1,000 films, and if on average a Blu-ray costs me about £2, well, that's £2,000 to replace the lot. It would be a lot. And an average 4K is a hell of a lot more than that. For example, and this is another one I'll talk about soon, I did also, along with the Blu-ray Pirates of the Caribbean films, I bought the 4K collection, and I think that was £38 for the 5 of them on Blu-ray, whereas for the 5 of them on 4K, whereas the 5 of them on Blu-ray cost maybe £7, something like that. So it's like 5, 6, 7 times as much. So it could feasibly cost over 10 grand to replace everything on 4K, which would be nuts. And I'm pretty sure that there are problems in that, for example, with the Pirates of the Caribbean ones, I returned that 4K box set because I figured out, based upon the comment sections and what the internet said, that the 4K version of some things is actually inferior to the Blu-ray version. Something that I was considering doing, because I feel like it's another franchise that could potentially have benefited from it, is swapping out my Lord of the Rings and Hobbit Blu-rays for the 4Ks, but apparently the Lord of the Rings, especially on 4K, isn't as good as the Blu-ray version. So I also don't want to have this argument every single time I buy a Blu-ray. Every single time I buy a 4K. I don't want to have to sit there Googling and trying to figure out whether the Blu-ray version is better than the 4K version or not every single time I consider it, especially with how many there are to replace. So instead of having to go through any of that, it just makes more sense for me to get the Blu-rays. The Blu-rays are cheaper, they're easier to come by, they're more plentiful, and I would imagine that there is almost no instance on this planet where the Blu-ray is not better than at least the regular DVD. There might be discussions to be had as to whether or not the 4K version is superior to the Blu-ray, because in some instances it does seem to be that a lot of people generally agree that in some instances the 4K is worse than the Blu-ray, but I would imagine that there is no instance where a Blu-ray is worse than the regular DVD. And if we're being real, I'm kind of looking forward to having full rows of blue. It almost annoys me that some of these have got slip covers. Like looking at my X-Men collection, the slip cover being on first class makes it look a little bit ugly and out of place amongst the rest of them, and that kind of bothers me. I almost wish there wasn't one, because it would then be blue. I could throw it away, because obviously the regular Blu-ray is in there, but then that would hurt my feelings to do that as well. Same thing goes down here with Pirates of the Caribbean, where 1 out of 5 have got a slip cover. I've seen some collectors who just refuse to buy things unless they've got slip covers, and that could never be me. I don't really like the slip covers too much, I can't lie to you. I like just being able to look at stuff as it's supposed to be, and I think that having that like thick block of blue going across would be pretty nice. So when it comes to what I'm aiming to replace, it's generally just, well, to be fair, slowly but surely it'll probably be everything that I possibly can, because it'll make for good content. It's something fun to do. But the things that I'm precisely aiming at like right now is like the big blockbustery stuff. X-Men, Marvel, Lord of the Rings, Men in Black, Pirates of the Caribbean, Matrix, Harry Potter's already got a Blu-ray. TV shows are definitely something that I would like to get on Blu-ray. I've already got most of Supernatural on Blu-ray, and I think seasons 11 through 15 are not Blu-ray. But if I can get a Blu-ray version of something, I'm gonna. My Breaking Bad collection up there is definitely already Blu-ray. One day I'll get Game of Thrones on Blu-ray, because that could be a decent upgrade too. I need to check whether I've got... Yeah, so I need the Spartacus collection on Blu-ray rather than regular DVD. I'm also annoyed that I've just pushed that back a little bit. That's going to bother me. I'm going to have to pull that forwards. But yeah, that's sort of the gist behind it, is that I'm not against replacing them with 4K. It's just that it seems like a lot of faff, a lot of money, and a lot of arguments to be had as to whether or not they're even better. So for now, what will probably end up happening is, for the foreseeable, I will replace DVDs with Blu-rays. And hell, maybe in a decade or so, when everybody has moved on to like having things directly streamed to our brain or something, and the 4K ones get cheaper or whatever. Point is that hypothetically, if DVDs, VHS and Blu-rays have all gone down in price, hopefully at some point, potentially maybe 4Ks also come down in price. And if that happens, then I will replace those two with the 4Ks. But for now, Blu-ray will do. But also, you guys, if you've made it this far into the video, you had better be subscribed. A good 30 to 60% of you are not. Granted, I do imagine you probably didn't make it this far into the video if that was you, but if it isn't, do be sure to subscribe, because there's a place there for a silver play button one day. Love you, see you in a bit.